Yeah, SMX Insider headed your way to preview a 2-weekend break, actually, in the SMX World Championship. We are the Jasons. JT, timing is everything. We could have spent this show with more head scratching, shrugging of the shoulders, wondering what's up. Can anyone even get close to the Lawrence brothers? But now we don't have to do that because now Chase Sexton and, to a similar degree, Eli Tomac can go into the break saying, problem solved. We're in it.
I agree. What a difference a week can make, because I think the air kind of got sucked out of the series a bit at Spring Creek. It just felt like that two of the guys that we thought were going to fight for this title going into the opener, and Sexton and Tomac, were nowhere near it. Like, they couldn't even see the lead. And then we go to a track where we mentioned this on this very show, that if Sexton and Tomac can't get back there at tracks that they have historically been very good at, that does not bode well for the end of the series. And they would have to stew on that for 2 full weekends off and think about what the last 3 rounds of Pro Motocross and then those 3 SMX World Championship Playoffs rounds would bring. Now it feels like they have kind of, life breathed back into their hopes. Like, everything seems like in front of them, and they can carry that. They can work on things that maybe they were a little bit off on, and just the sentiment around both their racing and this series feels much different than it did.
And we'll get an expert here to weigh in on that. This is awesome. As our big interview, we're going to have Cooper Webb coming off of meniscus surgery. Going to find out when he's getting back on the bike and his thoughts on the topic we just discussed. Hey, this is cool. Big interview this week. We have none other than the Monster Energy Supercross champ, Cooper Webb. That's the good news. The bad news is, are you literally on a couch right now? That's what the riders always say. Is that literally what we have going right now?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It is literally on the couch with the knee injury. We're 1 week post-surgery. So, yeah, not much happening at the moment for Cooper Webb. Just a lot of couch time, a lot of therapy, a lot of ice, and a lot of recovery tools. Just trying to get my knee healed up. But, yeah, 1 week out, and we're making progress so far, and happy with those things healing process so far.
Well, you think about, you kind of stated the goal is to get back for the SMX World Championship Playoffs, and it's not that far away. We're 6-7 weeks out. So what does that look like to, safely go through therapy and get back to able to ride as quickly as possible? Just for those who've never kind of gone through this in a hurry, what are some of the things you're willing to share with us that you go through?
Yeah, so for me, I've been very fortunate. This is actually my first ever knee injury, which is pretty rare, for motocross racers. So I haven't experienced much, but yeah, as of right now, it's a 4 to 6 week window until back on the bike. All depends with progress, right? So I think what the plan we kind of made with the doc and my physio is, once you get to certain goals within your knee extension and being able to do squats, mobile stuff like that, getting some twists and bends going in the knee, you kind of have steps, right? It sounds like to me is every week you want to kind of check those off the list and make progress there. So yeah, with that being said, the goal for me is to hopefully be on a dirt bike within right at the 4 to 5 week mark, and right around that 6 week, you're pretty much good to go full bore, no restraints, anything like that. So yeah, we're doing everything I can. Like I said, I have a full-time physio guy that I employ, that we've been working twice a day to get better. We have some great recovery tools with the hyperbaric chamber that Aero supplies us with, and yeah, like I said, trying to do everything I can to be on the bike with as much prep before the SMX playoffs as possible. But with that being said, I think our time window is well within that. I'm optimistic. I'm a guy that's shooting for that 4 week mark. So, we'd have plenty of time if I could return to the bike at that point.
So kind of want to get your opinion on what you saw Spring Creek, Washougal. It felt like two completely different races as far as the race at the top, with Chase and Tomac getting back into it. So from your perspective, you have to battle these guys all the time. Hear your thoughts on what you saw this past Saturday at Washougal.
Yeah, man, it was, it's definitely a bummer when you're not out there, right? It's hard to watch sometimes, but I'm always watching and analyzing and studying. And yeah, like you said, it was crazy the bounce back, right? I mean, especially I'd say more for my teammate Eli, right? He had a very rough day at Millville, I'd say. So for him to be back in the fight, and yeah, I mean, honestly, as a fan, I respect all these guys. I had obviously the title fight with Chase, so it was cool to see a new winner. I'm not going to lie there. Jett's been pretty dominant, as we know, and to kind of see someone get in there and get a win, even though Jett had his mistake in the first moto, it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I'm not going to lie, and it was a battle to the very very end. And from a fan, being on the couch like I am right now, thought it was one of the most exciting races of the year.
So, specific question on that. When you think about the way Spring Creek was, 40 seconds to Sexton, 90 seconds to Tomac, they weren't really even relevant in the battle at all. And then you fast forward a week and they're in the fight all day long trying to win the race. So where do you come down on making that big of a jump or that big of a change between one track to another?
Well, I can't speak for them entirely, but just, from my perspective, and I obviously have a little more insight with Eli. I know they tried he was in Florida testing before Spring Creek to just try to get him a little more comfortable, it sounded like. And I think they kind of just took a swing and it wasn't a direction. And knowing Eli, he probably stayed with that setup all day. And clearly, I think just wasn't comfortable. And to me, watching, I think Spring Creek was the way they prepped it. It seems very fast and like I like to call it, a bit spendy, where you really need to be comfortable on your bike to have that confidence to go through the rollers and hit those square edges and send those downhills like maybe the Honda boys were able to do. But it is crazy, when you think of just in general to get beat by that much and not even be on the podium for Eli and not even in the top 5 and to go 6 days later and be in the fight is crazy. But I don't think it's abnormal. I think we see it all the time, at least for myself and these guys, when it just shows when we're a little bit off, you see the margins, right? And I do think Washougal, as we know in the past, has always created a tighter racing. It's a little more harder to pass, a little less separation. But with that being said, it was like night and day different, the kind of the performances. So,
hey, one more. It was cool to see you show up at the opening round there at Pro Motocross, even though I'm sure it wasn't a full focus. You were trying to lock down that Supercross title. And I kept joking that you're going to have more fun over the summer than anyone because you had very little pressure. But when you actually were doing it 5-6 races, you're around that 6-7 spot every week. As a competitor, does the fun begin to wear off? Does the fun turn to frustration, whether there's pressure or not to win that title?
It's tough, like you said, mentally when you're going for championship and then you fast forward and then your goal is a top 5. It's a little bit hard, but honestly, I think for me this year was exactly that, was trying to get all the races in. It's been 4 years since I've done the full Pro Motocross series, and I just haven't been racing the outdoors. And it just so happened that this year was in my opinion, the most stacked it's been in a long, long time. So I was happy with my progress. I was fighting some stuff too. I got really sick and had some issues there, and my daughter ended up in the hospital one week where I had to travel and go see her. So just a lot of little things that added up to, maybe not making the progress that I truly wanted. But I felt like Redbud was another step in the right direction. I was a lot closer to the top guys, and I rode well. But this is the sport, right? You have injuries and stuff like that. So I was having fun. I had low expectations, and I was truly getting better every weekend. And even though it was, like you said, 5 to 8 every weekend, I felt like I was battling super legit guys that have won races and been on podiums and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. And then I see a weekend like Spring Creek where I feel like that could have been a good weekend for me, right? So, but it's part of racing, and I was having fun. And I think as you get older, you start to appreciate things a lot more, and that's the racing side. I really was having fun this summer.
All right, yeah, good to hear, because I was like, he's just like anybody else, man. He's going to race a dirt bike on weekends. Nothing wrong with
We
that.
were joking. It was just a camping trip with 2 motos. That's
Yeah.
what we were calling it.
Yeah, the only difference in your motos were like double the length of a regular guy on a weekend. You're doing 30s. That's about it. So yeah, I'm glad you were able to keep that because it is cool to have you out there, and I guess we'll see you back before long.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, hopefully be back on the bike soon, and definitely be ready to go for these playoffs, and excited for that. And want to try to do our best foot forward there, man. It'll be exciting.
All right. Thanks for the time. Get back on the bike.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
All right, great to have Cooper Webb weighing in on the show. And we're going to talk about a lot here, not just the Ironman National that's upcoming after the break, but also Loretta Lynn's that's going to take place before that, the Monster Energy Amateur National, Motocross of Nations, who could be on Team USA, and even 2026. It is both Chase Sexton and Eli Tomac in free agency right now. We're going to tell you who they're going to ride for next year. Okay, time for the 30-second board. JT, I don't know if you ever calculated that you as a rider and racer would be a topic in the 30 board, but today is your day. The Honda holeshot challenge against yourself and Steve Matthes. Can you first explain how this thing even came to be and why? Because that's probably crazier than the result.
Well, like most things in life, it often starts with Steve Matthes saying something ridiculous, which in this case was that he could take both either Jett Lawrence or Hunter Lawrence's factory CRF 450 and holeshot anybody on the planet. That was the initial claim made by him. He then had to backpedal quickly because Hunter Lawrence stepped up to the plate immediately and wanted to take him up on this. Now, somehow along the way, I ended up being the target of this, that I was going to have to take a stock CRF 450 and beat Steve Matthes on Hunter Lawrence's factory-equipped CRF 450. So this is over a year in the making. We finally got this to happen. I don't know how Honda HRC approved this. I don't know how anybody involved from an authoritarian level approved this, but it happened. It happened on Friday at Washougal, and I'm going to be honest with you, Leach, the results spoke for themselves.
I'll let Honda actually speak for it. This is their official word in their team press release, which is talking about Shimoda and the Lawrences, and also this, a former pro racer, Thomas, earned the win, suggesting that the team's penchant for strong getaways is the result of a combination of rider talent, a competitive base machine, and meticulous setup by the team's technical crew and sponsors. So they're saying that Jett and Hunter contribute to the good starts, and you.
Well, I think that was the whole battle. Was the Honda so good that anybody could find a way to get a hole shot on that bike? Well, I think we proved that, yes, the bike is good. Hunter Lawrence hole-shotted the second moto again on that machine. But there is a talent factor in there somewhere. Somewhere the rider has to be part of the equation. And, yeah, let's just say that the old pro came out on top.
You know, that wasn't the only drama on the start this weekend. Yes, I'm sure you were under tons of pressure. You even told the team you were just going to ride to the hotel and disappear if you lost to Matthes. And then on a more serious note, Anton Nordstrom, rider, goes down early in the second 450 moto. It leads to a restart. And I don't know how many riders or teams knew this, but they had announced before Pro Motocross there would be a new restart procedure. Remember 2 years ago at Budds Creek, Hayden Deegan was going to win the first 250 moto. They red flagged it. They restarted it with a typical gate start. You can't fit 40 bikes end to end to do a staggered restart like they do in Supercross. So the solution was what we saw on Saturday, which is AMA official John Starling releasing the bikes and hopefully having them not hit him. And I think it was a way more fair way to do it. Going back to the full gate restart is terrible, especially because we have this showcase Tomac Lawrence's Sexton battle going. But JT, I don't know. You were down there. Do you feel that everyone was truly even aware or prepared for this? Or were they learning on the fly?
By the time the gate dropped again, yes, they were 100% up to speed. Everybody kind of knew how this was going to go. But I would say before that, not really. There were a lot of questions being asked. You know, at first, the riders started to line up for a full restart. They weren't sure if they were doing this Supercross restart mode. So it was a learning experience, you know, and credit to AMA and MX Sports, like they've done this in qualifying practice. I think the disconnect came in is that the riders didn't know that procedure in qualifying practice was actually a dress rehearsal for what would happen in a red flag scenario. So once everybody was kind of on the same page, I think it went off without a hitch. Now it was interesting to watch. You know, John Starling was having to move quickly to get out of riders' way, but in the end, I thought it actually was executed pretty well.
Yeah, it didn't affect the result of the race. It pretty much resumed right where it was, which is cool. I know that Chase Sexton fans are bummed because he had passed Hunter Lawrence, but he passed him as the red flag comes out. So again, according to the rule book, you have to revert back to the previous lap. So he started third. Justice was served. Hunter made a mistake. He got the second, and then we know what happened from there. But that was cool. And I guarantee you, when we get to Ironman, there'll be a lot more intensity of that first practice start in the morning at 8 a.m. because now they're going to know that's what's going to happen in the race if that happens again. We mentioned here, as we talked about, we're going to talk about in the show, Team USA. Speaking of Ironman, so October 5th, the world comes to Motocross of Nations in America. I think we're getting a little more clarity that the super team Team USA could and should put together.
I think so too. And you know how much I value this race. And a week or two ago, I was nervous because it just seemed like it wasn't really working out. Remember, a lot of contracts end or switch over on October 1st. Now, we believe that Eli Tomac and Chase Sexton are both switching teams, which is a big problem when you have a race in the first weekend of October post-contract starting and ending. So fast forward a week. It's amazing how quickly things can change. At Washougal, it sounded like we were back to where we needed to be. It sounded like Tomac and Sexton, as long as they are riding well at the time, are going to find a way to be on Team USA. And that's all I've ever asked for this race is put your best foot forward, get you the best riders possible on Team USA. And I'm happy to report as of July, and it could change again, but as of July, it looks like we're going to get the three guys that I think are most deserving, which would be Deegan, Sexton, and Tomac.
That leads to the silly season. Yeah, these things have been signed. This is going to happen. You will not hear Chase Sexton or Eli Tomac say it because they can't until October. I know fans get mad about this, but I believe they could get their paychecks dinged if they talk about this before October. So we'll say it because they can't. We believe Chase Sexton is signed with Monster Energy Kawasaki, and that vacates a spot at Red Bull KTM, and Tomac's going to take that spot. That is huge. The Anaheim 1 press conference next year, seeing them in completely different colors, that is going to be wild to adjust to that.
Yeah, and it always kind of goes the same way. That the process is the same. The biggest names need to come off the board first. Until those guys put pen to paper and are no longer eligible, the other teams with budget to spend don't want to do anything, because what happens if that rider, like an Eli Tomac, fell into their lap at the last second and then they didn't have a move? They want to be able to pivot. So now that we believe Tomac is now done, you're hearing that Jason Anderson has now found a home. I'm hearing that Ducati is basically set for 2026 and beyond. So all of the pieces, just like we thought, are falling into place. It was the one domino. Sexton was early. I think that was during Supercross. Tomac in recent weeks has been done, and now everybody else is falling into place accordingly. And honestly, it's always been the same way. Once the top guys go off, then everybody else starts finding homes very, very quickly.
Yeah, could actually now I hear be Anderson with Suzuki as a teammate of Ken Roczen, and maybe Dylan Ferrandis to Ducati. I think everyone on earth expects Justin Barcia to be part of the Troy Lee Designs Ducati team. We're not 100% sure on any of those things yet, like we pretty much are with Sexton and Tomac. As you said, the big names are usually the first to sign. That leads us to what we saw at Washougal. I feel that Redbud, JT, when Sexton came back, that was peak deep field. We were right back to where we were at the opener of Pro Motocross. Plus, you had Tony Caroli on a Ducati in that race. And then quickly they've been dropping Plessinger, Cooper Webb, who we just talked to, a lot of other riders going out. Anderson, I think, is out for the entire rest of this season, even SMX.
You go back to the history of the sport. This is pretty normal, unfortunately. You try to make all 31 rounds, as Cooper Webb has mentioned. That was the goal. He wasn't able to do that. AP is just dealing with some sort of unknown illness that's kept him out. It's really challenging to make every single race. It is a really tough sport to just keep going. And we've heard Justin Cooper talk in recent weeks about how difficult that is to just make every single round. So as much as we hate to see these guys on the sideline for a week or two, I would say it's more normal than it is abnormal to see a little bit of attrition with a few rounds left in Pro Motocross.
Okay, SMX medical update. We bring in Dr. Joe McGinley. It was good to hang out with you in person at Washougal. This is interesting. You're going to talk about a topic that is starting to become popular in other forms of motorsports that we haven't heard much in the world of SMX. So talk about that, and then we'll talk about how it maybe should apply to this sport.
Yeah, absolutely. At the McGinley Clinic, we're cross-training now with IndyCar and open wheel racing, and I'm learning from them as well. And vision training is what we're speaking about. For IndyCar racing, I mean, fractions of a second matter. So part of their training protocol is enhancing their vision reflexes. And this can include depth perception, eye tracking, peripheral vision, even reaction times. and it's an integrated part of their weekly training sessions.
Give me an idea, if you can, of like what that is, like what type of the exercises are, and then how would that apply maybe to Supercross, Motocross?
Well, I had the opportunity to visit one of these training centers out in Indianapolis, and I got to play with some of this equipment. So it was quite fun to do that. But a lot of it is hand-eye coordination and eye-brain communication skills. So strobe glasses, light boards where you'll see different lights light up, and you have to reach to them and get your reaction times. And then what you're seeing in a lot of sports is VR glasses and VR training. So you can even get some of these things and do them at home. I use this for mountaineering, the visualization training with VR, but for open wheel racing, you see it pretty much as part of their normal routine. I think this could be very beneficial in motocross where things are happening quickly. You're looking ahead at the track's always changing. You have bikes on either side of you. You have bikes flying around you. I mean, it's very important to make sure that your vision's in tune to what's happening on that track in real time.
Honestly, even starts, even that, watching that pin to get the best reaction time off the gate could be the next big thing. All right, thanks, Dr. Joe. Okay, next up, more news as the series resumes at Ironman in 2 weeks. Also, the WMX Championship, which has been off since round 3 at Thunder Valley, is back. I hope most fans remember how great the racing was. They got rained out on Friday. We put them on the show live on Peacock on Saturday. The girls did an excellent job showcasing their skills. And JT, I think it'll get better. The real story in WMX, everyone has been waiting for the champion, the defending champion America, Lachlan Turner, to go against Australia's Charlie Cannon when they're both healthy. Cannon's been scoring points, but also riding with a broken finger at those first couple rounds there in May and June. She's going to be back to 100% for the last 3 here, Ironman, Unadilla, and Budds Creek. It is on.
It is on, and I think Charlie Cannon's name is appropriate because she's going to be shot out of a cannon when she gets back to this series. She was so frustrated with her inability to ride to her potential in those opening rounds because of that finger injury. So that fire burns hot. And when you get time to go back and reset and put time in and come back and prove really the rider that you are, not necessarily what we saw, I just think it's going to be a great battle. And I would say they have a tough time upping what we saw in Thunder Valley. That was all time. There was like a battle for first and second, and then there was a battle for third and fourth that were both some of the best racing of the weekend. And we saw third and fourth go down together on the very last lap. That was incredible, and good luck to them kind of repeating or bettering that performance from last time.
Okay, and yes, remember, WMX will be the final 3 Pro Motocross races. They'll be racing in all 3 of them. And then it's time for the playoffs after the weekend off. That all starts in September 6th, to be precise, at ZMAX Dragway, part of the Charlotte Motor Speedway complex. Then the Dome at America Center in St. Louis on September 13th. And the World Championship gets handed out in Las Vegas at the drag strip, the strip that they call it there. That's part of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway complex, and that will be September 20th. So these riders are starting to learn, how do you integrate preparing for SMX hybrid tracks while racing pro motocross. It's year 3. The riders have a break right now. We asked a couple of them what their plan is for SMX testing.
Probably start riding SMX in this break we have. Trying to obviously come in ready to go for that one. Won't have the points lead coming into this year, which I'm kind of excited about. Change it up a little bit.
Yeah, we're looking to do a bit of a test in between the break. Obviously, we have 2 weekends off, which we'll try and use to get a little bit of a jump start on that. Obviously, the last 3 rounds are really a lot of focus on them, predominantly the last 2. So yeah, we'll kind of crack that egg a little bit in the break.
I think after Unadilla, ride a couple days SMX and kind of find my groove and see where we're at, kind of setup wise going into Charlotte.
Yeah, so in the break, obviously, we have 2 weekends off. So in that middle week, we're going to do some testing for SMX and try and get a bit of a head start. And so that weekend off in between SMX, we kind of can just focus on doing laps and getting more and more familiar with the bike.
Yeah, SMX, it roughly, I mean, maybe this is 2 weekends off after Washougal. Star usually cooks up a good track for that, so maybe we'll filter in some days.
Okay, and on the back of that, let's talk points in SMX. So the first to 250 class, the real battle is for that bubble. Hayden Deegan is way out front, so no reason to even discuss that. And no surprise that Joe Shimoda, Garrett Marchbanks are second and third. It's kind of the way it is in pro motocross. Also, JT, Cole Davies is 16th. He has 171 points. Dylan Schwartz has 149. He's 20th. Davies is going to have to get back, and we hear he might get back for a couple of pro motocross races. Davies, he has Supercross skills. Seth Hamaker, we saw what he could do. There could be some spoilers. We're all going to think Deegan Shimoda off the back of pro motocross, but you never know.
Yeah, it's tough. You think about Davies' position coming off an injury, really doesn't have any pro motocross experience at all. So he's forced to try to come back early to, avoid going to those LCQ rounds or anything like that. It's a tricky spot to be in, but this is a completely different thing for a lot of these riders. 3 years ago, none of this would have mattered. So everybody's still learning, and you're having to watch the points week in and week out. It's such a fluid situation. As riders have a really good weekend or a really bad weekend, it can really change the ebb and flow of how this is going to go.
Then we go to the 450 class. Here's the big change, the lack of change. Chase Sexton has a 32-point advantage over Jett Lawrence in playoff seeding right now. He outscored Jett slightly at Washougal. So it's kind of like you were saying, the point lead that Webb had in Supercross. Sexton, if he could just hold serve here over the last 6 motos, that could be huge.
It is huge. Think about what it came down to at the Las Vegas SMX finale last year. They were tied in points. Had Jett been one further seed back going into the SMX playoffs, he would have lost the championship the way it played out. So you think that these things don't really matter too much. What's the difference between 3rd and 4th? Well, last year, I can tell you the difference was an SMX World Championship. So that's what these guys have to think about. They have to remember that these points, when it really comes down to it, are hypercritical.
Sexton has a 32-point advantage to maintain over Lawrence with 6 motos to go. Okay, and one other event to preview, and that is the Monster Energy Amateur National, or as most people refer to it, Loretta Lynn's, which comes up starting next week. I'll be there announcing all week. You can watch that on Racer TV. We kind of know, JT, the players here because of SMX Next, both in Supercross and Motocross. For example, just a few weeks ago at Redbud, Landon Gibson appeared to have the thing won at Redbud until the bike broke in the last lap. Landon Gordon did win it, and they're just a couple of the names that we get familiar with now all year going into Loretta's.
Yeah, and you wonder, has the dynamic changed a little bit? Because years ago, Loretta's was the end-all, be-all race of the year. It could determine your fate as far as career getting a ride, or were you going to be left out and trying to find some sort of privateer position moving forward. I think that dynamic shifted a little bit. These SMX Next rounds have given these amateurs an opportunity to showcase themselves. Monster Energy Supercross, Pro Motocross. So now it feels like Loretta Lynn's still important, but it's just another one of these opportunities where before, man, you could really, really derail your future by having one bad weekend, where now you have these 9 SMX Next opportunities that, okay, Loretta's didn't go so well for Landon Gibson, maybe. He was fantastic at Redbud, so it offsets that a little bit. And I just think it takes a little bit of pressure off of these kids.
I think the way the teams are kind of looking at it, they want an in-betweener to go from, and Loretta's had a rough track and long motos and heat and humidity, so it was a little closer to pro racing. Some of the other big amateur races were like 4 laps, and it was really hard for the scouts. So what I think you're going to see, the pressure moves to the mini bike classes and the B class to then get a ride for SMX Next, Supercross and Motocross, and set yourself up there. It's almost like a 3-step process now. So yeah, I think you're right. At the top, there's probably a little less pressure, and a few steps below that, there might be more to earn your way into SMX Next, because we all know that's what people are watching these days. SMX Facts time. We bring in Clinton Fowler. This is it, kind of both exciting and not. I don't understand. I feel like we're watching these races every weekend, Clinton, and the 450 field seems deep. I know that Jett Lawrence wins most of the time, but it seems super competitive. But you're about to nail us in the face with a stat that says it's actually less competitive than we might think.
I mean, it has been competitive, but when you look at since 2023, when Jett Lawrence came in as a rookie, we've only had 2 winners. So that's nearly 3 years that we're looking at 2 winners, Weege. 22 wins for Jett Lawrence, 8 wins for Chase Sexton. Impressive on both of their sides, but really it's the Jett Lawrence piece that's just amazing here. When he's won 22 of 24, in Weege, we're repeating history, or at least it looks like we're repeating history. If you go back to 2002 to 2005, there was a 4-year stretch where Ricky Carmichael won 45 of 47 overalls. And the only other rider to win 2 was Kevin Windham. Absolutely incredible, Weege, to think about it. I do think it's still competitive, but there's just a level of dominance ultimately that Jett Lawrence seems to be putting in place here.
Yeah, and that's what our colleague James Stewart says. It's because Jett doesn't always win by these massive margins. So it seems like they get him on the ropes. And then we look at the end of the day and say, oh, they actually didn't. And it's the same thing this year. Eli Tomac won some motos. But in the end, the only guy to beat Jett for overalls is Sexton. Has anyone else won motos out of this group?
You know, Weege, it's an interesting parallel to that same 2002 to 2005 period. There's 4 people during this time that have won motos. You got Eli Tomac, who's won 2. You got Hunter Lawrence, that's won 4. So there's other guys putting their name in the mix. It's just a matter of getting those 2 motos on the same day to get an overall from Jett Lawrence and or Chase Sexton.
Maybe we'll get another winner, or maybe we won't. But either way, it's still been exciting to watch, right?
Sure will, Weege.
Okay, about to wrap up this episode of SMX Insider. We will not have a show next week, but as mentioned, you can go to Racer TV on YouTube or racertv.com and watch live racing from the Monster Energy Loretta Lynn's National Championship next week. If you need your racing fix, we'll be back August 7th to preview Ironman when Pro Motocross resumes. That is Saturday, August 9th. Everything you can watch, as usual, live on Peacock from that event or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States. And quick shout out, there will be a re-air on USA Network on Sunday from 12:30 Eastern time through 2:30 Eastern. Again, that's a Sunday, the day after the race on USA Network, or just watch everything on Peacock. JT, so we mentioned at the top of the show, little wind in the sails of the likes of Chase Sexton, Eli Tomac, probably Joe Shimoda, who's really got a good streak going. Do the riders ride that? Or do they say, nah, man, it's still a break. I need to treat it like a break?
I think it's both, you know, and I think the mental aspect of this is the most important because they're going to take some time off. Everybody by this point needs some time off, but the optimism, the way they're viewing their position in racing, how they're going to view these, you know, final 3 Pro Motocross rounds and then into the playoffs, all those things are a big deal, you know, and I think for both Tomac and Sexton, there was a real chance of them going into this break down in the dumps, really pessimistic, but they did a great job of bouncing back, just like we heard from Cooper Webb, bounce back, you know, at Washougal. And now I think they're pretty light and upbeat, and that could change everything as far as their chances go down the stretch.
Well, that'll just make it that much more interesting because the momentum will carry over into Ironman. Again, that is August 9th when SMX resumes. It has been a sensational first 3 quarters of Pro Motocross. So we're going to look back at some of the great moments of 2025 thus far, and then we'll see you here on SMX Insider in a few weeks.
Hayden Deegan starts the year with a 1-1 at his home track. Eli and Jett side by side.
Oh, you got to block the line.
Oh no! Sexton has gone down.
There's a bit of an excuse for Webb here. This is getting worse. Turn down for what?
There it is.
Get it to him more. Hey, let him know with the silent J.
There it is. Danger Boy Hayden Deegan taking the victory. Look at this. Privateer Lance Kobush takes the lead. Tomac at the overall right now. Eli Tomac's back on top with a moto win at Hangtown. Racers on the gate. Revs are up. It's time to go. Long uphill climb begins, and it is Hymas. Hymas takes the first moto. So the win streak for Hayden Deegan will end. Chance Hymas does it. 1-1 for the overall in Colorado. And his bike was steaming late.
Bike has no power at this
But
point.
if not, it's racing.
He's watching these two go crazy out front. Justin Cooper launching down the hill, taking the lead.
And Jett Lawrence takes Moto 1 under pressure. And Jett Lawrence wins again. The 4-time champion wants to get back to the top. Oh no! Tomac goes down. Oh, they're probably exhausted. It's the last side by side. They knock each other down for third. Hayden Deegan wins Moto 1 at High Point. Hayden Deegan sweeps High Point 2025. Seth Hammaker on the podium for the first time. Jett Lawrence, High Point 2025.
Eli Tomac standing by the first in that moto, though. Congrats on that.
Of course, good to finish on a high note there. Finally put myself in a reasonable position.
So slippery. So these conditions right up the alley.
High Point National, the red flag has waved.
Deegan 1-1 at Southwick 2025. Jett Lawrence takes the first moto at Southwick. 1-1 at Southwick. 96 of Hunter. He's on the inside and makes the move. Prado is now the rider on the move.
Thanks to the crowd. Thanks to my team. They're working hard as always. Another thank you to the crowd. They're awesome.
And now Deegan goes down. And another rider down. Oh, that's Deegan again. Joe Shimoda takes 250 Moto Joe 1. Shimoda sweeps Redbud 2025.
Jett's just got to be careful here.
Lawrence has crashed. Jett Lawrence, he is one rider away from going from 18th to 1st in this race. Lawrence sweeps Redbud 2025. Oh no, James Tomac. We saw the steam or smoke coming out earlier. And it looks like he might be done.
Eli was bringing the heat. Bike wasn't ready for it. If you can hear this crowd right now, they are going nuts.
Let's get it started here at Spring Creek. Hayden Deegan, the overall winner of Millville. In so many ways, Jeremy Martin ends his career with a win. These people will never forget this, and neither will Jeremy Martin.
Congratulations, Jeremy. So happy for the guy.
First moto at Millville goes to Hunter Lawrence. Oh no! Jett goes down, very similar to last moto at Redbud. Jett Lawrence wins Spring Creek. Rider out of Suzuka, Japan. Joe Shimoda wins Washougal. And Deegan already trying to make a move. They collide. DeFrancisco goes down, but Deegan stays up. Marchbank's hustling through, trying to make this pass, seal the deal, and he does. There is a staggered restart rule in Pro Motocross for the first time.
Bummer, but we're going to go back, recoup, and try and be better the next time.
Chase Sexton gets the overall win.
Nice to get a win, third race back.